Okay, greetings. Dumuzid's music explores powerful themes like war, demonology, and death. How do these themes reflect your personal philosophies, and how do you see these ideas connecting with your audience on a deeper level?
Well, for me personally, I feel like a big thing is I've never been in war and I'm not going to claim that I've been like to war, but I feel like it's a theme that a lot of people can understand, especially in the modern era. We see war more than ever. I mean, in media, like people are able to film who are like right there. They're able to film it just outside. So I feel like it's an unfortunate reality of our world that just we're so used to seeing, and it's something that's well known, but I feel like it's something that's never going to stop being talked about because it is so important to talk about and like explore why does it happen and stuff like that. Um, for demonology, it's actually just been an interest of mine because I was actually raised Catholic. Um, I'm not super in touch with it, but it's always like religion has always been an interesting aspect to me. I try to learn about different religions as much as I can. Like I've been studying Hinduism a lot and the Bhagavad Gita just to like, expand my understanding of the world. And with like themes like death and demonology and everything, like I feel like there's a stigma with a lot of metal music that like, oh, I'm probably like some negative evil person, but
Or, a
I'm really not.
or like how they assume that you're like you worship the devil, stuff like that.
Yeah, like I don't really worship the devil. Most people who make metal music don't really worship the devil. I mean, there are some who do, and they're still pretty cool. But like people who play metal and me included, I would like to think are not like bad people, and I want people to understand that like metal music, although it's negative, it is like it's talking about real stuff that happens in the world. Like, war is a real thing that happens, death is a real thing that happens. You can't just pretend that it doesn't happen just because you don't want it to be happening.
True. And war is something that's been going on for years, especially in the country that we live in.
Hmm.
There's a war going on now.
Well, and like I feel like as an American, like I live in a country that is responsible for a lot of war in the
Oh
world,
yeah.
or a lot of war. I mean, currently the U.S. is funding two ongoing wars in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. Ukraine and the Israel Gaza conflict, respectfully. And regardless of your opinions on war, because I'm not really here to talk about like any partisan stuff, it's not good that it happens. I would think most people agree that like war is not a good thing.
It's not.
Um, and it's kind of glorified a lot here. Like, like people kind of glorify war a lot and they make it seem like it's some great thing. And it's like, oh, we should all be proud of our country for doing that stuff. And I don't see it as something to be proud of. I feel like war is a horrible thing. And, I'm not gonna say that I'm like some kind of like political activist who's like gonna stop all war because I'm not, but I would at least like to get my opinion heard.
I agree. Plus, it's hard. You need many voices for that, but just one person can't actually make a change. Can't. For my next question, your latest full-length album, Hellbound Ritual Assault, has an intense title that conjures imagery of both ritual and rebellion. Can you share the inspiration behind the album's title and its connection to the overarching themes of your work?
Well, I'm not gonna like dance around it. I kind of came up with it just to like at first just wanted to make something that sounded interesting. Like how I come up with a lot of stuff is I kind of just have words like stewing around in my brain and like what sounds like something interesting, what sounds like something that's going to like get my message across, and then elaborating on that and making it have meaning because words are just words until you give them meaning. Like I can sit here and say like different words like apple or orange, but they don't have meaning unless I give them meaning. Like, oh, I had an apple this morning. And that's not a very deep meaning, but I just gave it meaning.
I like that. Was that it for your response?
Oh, I can go a bit more in depth.
Oh, okay.
Well, I feel like with Hellbound, like my music is supposed to conjure up like more demonic themes and everything since it's like black metal. So I thought Hellbound Ritual was like an interesting title to go off of that and give it kind of like that classic like black metal like war metal vibe. I'm not really a war metal artist, but I like to borrow a lot from war metal. Like I would say that I have themes of war metal in my music. I mean, beyond just the subject of war being in my music.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. If it's something that you want to explore, then anyone's feel it's they could feel free to like explore it.
Right.
For your track title, Hellbound Ritual Assault. I mean, the track titles on Hellbound Ritual Assault, such as Bloodied Altar to Astaroth and Monastery on the Blackened Ridge, paint vivid, dark scenes. Could you walk us through this storytelling behind these songs? What inspired the settings and symbols with them?
Well, all of the music I wrote has like a definite theme. Like all the songs, I put a lot of thought into it. Like the EP actually, the EP or album, or it just took me a lot of time to make like a lot more than I thought it would. Um, the first one, 𝓑𝓻𝓾𝓽, it's actually named after a thing from Warhammer 40K, but I don't know. That's kind of based off the idea that like, like evil in the world is from humans. Like at the end of the day, every evil person started out as a human and ended as a human. And that's not to humanize evil or glorify it, but it's kind of to show that like, hey, like we're all capable of horrible stuff and humanity is the reason behind a lot of the evils in our world. Like it's not like some external force.
I agree.
Um, Preaching the fear of the wretched wing, that idea was kind of more about the idea of being like lost and like without a purpose, and the idea is that like a lot of people who are without purpose tend to like latch on to things where they become really attached to it and just start like preaching it all the time, or they start talking about it all the time. And we see that on both sides politically. I feel like we see like people just like latching on to this idea and just like it's like, oh, if you don't agree with this you can't be my friend, or oh, like you have to vote for X or Y. I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of division in our world because a lot of people feel really lost and they feel like they need to like latch on to something and just like start like hammering it down towards just becoming mainstream.
Like
Um,
people that preach on religion, like stuff like that, like people that want to their message to be here, but some to be heard, but sometimes they're like forceful about it, right?
yeah,
Where
and
they want other people to do what they're doing, but they don't understand that other people have different views, right?
right, like I mean, I feel like a lot of people might understand the idea of like, oh, like getting approached by a guy and who wants to like tell you about his religion. I mean, I've had that happen to me all the time, but like even beyond that, like it can be extended to like political or cultural things. Like there are people who dedicate their lives to like one specific genre of music, or one like specific political ideology or one specific political issue, and that becomes like their entire like
Life.
personality. Like, I like black metal and everything, but like I don't know. I feel like it's good to be diverse. And I'm not saying that it's bad to have one thing be your core thing. I'm just saying that it's good to also be like, hey, like my friends, they probably don't like black metal. So it's okay.
No, I agree though. I listen to other types of music, not just like metal or like black metal. So I agree
Right.
with your point. Okay, so for my next question, how was your view, sorry, how was your view of demonology evolved over time, and what role does it play in shaping both the sonic and lyrical aspects of your music?
Well, I feel like demonology is something that's very tied um to a lot of Western society, in the sense that it's like it's often seen as like the flip side of like more traditional religions like Christianity or Judaism. It's often seen as like a societal ill, but I feel like it's an important aspect to explore, and a lot of early Christianity actually would explore demonology. Um, recently I've been reading like grimoires and stuff to like further my understanding of it beyond just like what I can find like on the internet. Because, like the internet is a great tool. Like you can find a lot of awesome stuff from it, but
True.
it can't always paint the greatest understanding of something, especially like a really complex topic like demonology. Like I've been reading The Lesser Key of Solomon a lot. Um, and like the demon Astaroth, which is laid out in that grimoire and a lot of other historical grimoires that are tied to it. Just the whole concept was interesting to me. Like I talk about a lot of demons in my music just because I find their whole concept interesting and like it's something that like a lot of what the what like the books say about the demons, I can't like I'm not like a conjurer or something. I can't say like, oh, this is what X demon says. Um, a lot of the themes are like very human in nature, and it's very clear that like it was made for like to be relatable to people.
I like that. Um, Bel Air, Maryland isn't the first place that comes to mind for black metal. How has your local environment influenced your sound, and what challenges or advantages do you face in creating within that setting?
Well, I mean, Bel Air is a very like it's a very Catholic area. Oh, that's my cat.
Oh
But
yeah, cute.
it is a very Catholic area. Like all of Maryland is a very Catholic area. Um, that's just like going back to like the historical roots of like Lord Baltimore, which when he came over from England actually established Maryland as a colony for Catholics, so it's still very much like in Maryland's roots. Um, it's not the most religious area, but religion is definitely very present here, and I was raised like to see a lot of it. And I don't have a problem with religion. Like I respect religion a lot. Like I respect all religions equally, but um it kind of led me to want to like explore other stuff. Like it's very plain here. There's not a lot going on. I mean, I feel like a lot of black metal artists historically, I mean, like a lot of people in Mayhem, like they were from like a town where like nothing was happening. And it's kind of like what's beyond this? And so I've been going to like Baltimore a lot and I've been like involved in the local punk scene because there really isn't a big black metal scene in Maryland at all. Baltimore even less so. Like there are people in Baltimore who make black metal, but it's not very like there's not many like black metal shows that come here. Like the last one that I can remember besides like Death Fest was like it was like a show with like Holder and Worm and Necrofire and Devil Master. So it's not very present here, and I kind of want to make it more present in the sense.
That would be great if you do. So I would assume that if you want to go to like a black metal show, you would have to commute far, right? Or to like nearby towns or other states.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, Baltimore still gets like black metal shows. It's just not very common. Like we have artists who are also adjacent to black metal. I'm actually wearing a shirt for a band called Intimidation Display that's like a blackened death band that's local to us. Um, a lot of the really good shows you have to go to New York or something though. Like I mean, like all the big names don't play here that often besides for like Death Fest. Like we had Abath and Carpathian Forest, and I think even Mayhem this year, but I wasn't able to go because of like work and stuff.
Oh, I hate when that happens, especially
Yeah,
when it's like a good lineup.
yeah, it was a really well, like Mayhem was a surprise too. Like I think they announced on like one of the final days of it, like, hey, we're actually here. So
That's cool. I was able to see them a few months ago, but in Norway though. But it was cool though. It's a cool show. Okay, so for my next question, or darn, I forgot the pronunciation. You said Dumuzid? Dumuzid?
no, you're fine. Yeah.
Since Dumuzid is relatively new, forming just last year, what challenges have you encountered in developing your identity as a black metal band? And how do you differentiate yourselves from others in the genre?
Well, black metal is a very, it's a very niche genre, but at the same time, there are a lot of black metal bands. I mean, I can think of like five off the top of my head. I There's like way more than that I've listened to, even if it's just like one or two tracks. Like, and metal itself has a lot of like musicians in it. It's been around for like decades, and black metal has been around for around the same time if you're looking back to like Venom and Bathory and stuff. Um, I'm not trying to like be like crazy with like how like I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at me, I'm black metal, but with this gimmick or with that gimmick, because I don't want to be that person. I'm kind of just letting it grow over time. Like I'm trying to like be different in my own way because, every human is different in their own way. Like even people who like are twins, like they each have like things that make them unique. So I'm not really trying to like rush how to make it different. I have a lot of like other elements of like metal and punk in my music. Like I have a lot of like aspects of like war metal and like hardcore punk just since I listen to a lot of hardcore punk and most of my friends are like punks
Motherfucker.
and not like metalheads. So um I guess that's a way, but overall, I'm not really trying to rush it. I kind of want it to develop naturally because, like, no, like black metal band started out like, oh yeah, we're gonna do black metal, but like we're gonna like wear like these crazy hats or something. Like
Or
it
like
just
corpse paint.
yeah, like I like corpse paint. I mean, I kind of even just go for like
Yeah.
the classic demon look. I don't really do like the whole like branching off look. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna keep that forever. Like I'm probably not, but it's just like a starting point for me. Like since I'm relatively new, I don't want to like rush it and like I don't want to be like the TX2 of black metal if you get what I mean. Like if you understand what I'm talking about.
I mean, just go with your own flow, there's no rush. See how it manifests itself, like how it
Right.
will bloom, pretty much.
Right.
For our next one, many black metal bands have strong DIY ethics, especially when unsigned. What has been your experience navigating the independent route? And what advice will you give to others looking to forge a similar path?
I would say that DIY is definitely the way to go, especially for black metal. I mean, black metal has a lot of ties to like punk and hardcore. That's why I feel like being in a punk or hardcore scene is a really good place to start. Um, Black metal scenes usually are not like as out there or as big, usually. I mean, if you're in countries like Norway or Finland, you might have better luck, but like here in America, black metal is more big in like certain cities, and even then, like it's not going to be that huge. So it's good to start with like punk shows or like punk venues or like other metal shows. Like don't be afraid to play with like a hardcore band or play at a bar that like plays mainly like punk or like thrash or something. Like don't limit yourself to only black metal because that's not going to do anything for you unless you are like in a place where black metal is like one of the bigger DIY genres. Um, for navigating the DIY scene, though, I would say that it's been a really good time. I've learned a lot about myself. I've met a lot of awesome people who are like very supportive. Like, I mean, the hardcore punk scene, like here, is a very like diverse group, and there's not really one sect of it, I would say. Like everyone, there are like different sects where it's like, you know, like it could be completely different from the other, and you also just get a lot of really good like experience with like setting up stuff. Like literally like yesterday I just learned how to like do a ton of like live equipment stuff. So if I wanted to like host a show that I'm not even playing at, I can do that now.
Oh, that's cool. So it's good to have connections, pretty much, and meeting all kinds of people that share like different knowledge with you, right?
It's like that and like even like logistics and everything. Like obviously getting a lot of audio equipment is very expensive and it's not like within reach for a lot of people. Like guitars can be a ton of money alone, like let alone like a guitar head or like a cab or something. So like with a lot of the people that I hang out with, it's like we have like we'll throw shows where it's like we have a PA system and a mixer that we all use and we all know how to use for setting up shows. Like I actually set up a lot more like punk shows and go to a lot more punk shows than I do black metal just because it's around more. But I try to like still like have black metal be a thing, and I want it to be more of a thing in Maryland, especially with like all like the death metal and like deathcore acts that we have. It would I feel like it would be awesome.
I think that would be great too. How do you balance the aggression and rawness of black metal with a sense of atmosphere or even spirituality in your music? Are there any specific techniques or influences that help you achieve this mix?
I would say that I definitely lean more towards the aggressive side, like even when I'm like mixing the audio, uh it's not very like I don't try to like polish it too much. It'll be polished to a degree because I don't want it to like sound like terrible, but um I don't know. I've always kind of liked the raw black metal aesthetic where it's like, like this is like in your face. This is like almost what it would be like to be there with like the energy that it has. And I have moments where it's more calm and everything, but it's with that spirituality for me, it's less of like the idea of like a calm sermon and more like if you've ever seen like movies or something where it's like you'll see like a preacher like just like unabashedly like screaming about like God or something. That's kind of what I go for, where it's like I'm gonna be aggressive and I'm gonna be in your face about it, but there's a message at the end of it. Like, I'm streaming, yeah, but it's about like stuff that I find important. It's not just about like, hey, like you suck or something, fuck you, shit like that.
Yeah, it has a story behind it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's good to have a story behind it because, if I called my band like Nordic Warhammers of the Nordic Wind or whatever, and like something about like evil and death and like I don't know, like
Typical
that's
thing.
cool and all, but like I don't want to be like too cliche.
That's true. It's better to be different.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my next question, your music has a rich thematic depth, especially with elements of ritualistic and mystical narratives. Do you incorporate any personal rituals or practices into your creative process, either individually or as a band?
Um, I like to put a lot of my I like to put a lot of myself into like a headspace where I'm able to do good work. Well, like with the music and everything, like everything I did on the EP was just me. Like at that point, Dumuzid was just a solo act, and I'm kind of leaning towards the direction of making it like an actual band. Like I actually have someone who's drumming for me for a show tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh, yeah, it's really awesome. I'm excited for it. But for me, like I'll try to put myself into a headspace where it's like, I can think of something negative, or I'll try to like call back to like times like recently or in the past where it's like I've experienced something that I would want to talk about. Like, you know, I've been in places that are not very good, both like physically and like metaphorically. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have, and a lot of people can relate to that. Like, even people who aren't metalheads have probably suffered at some point, like everyone does.
True.
Um, I don't really do anything that crazy. Like, I don't do some kind of like crazy ritual before I make music. It's more just like putting myself in the headspace where it's like, hey, I'm ready to work and I'm ready to like like process the emotions that come with like writing more atmospheric, like aggressive stuff because I can't do that all the time. Like I actually can do it a lot at work. Like when I'm working, I'm actually able to come up with a lot of lyrics just because I work at like a Target.
And when that comes, this is like just me wondering, but when you're working and you get those ideas, do you like write them down like on a piece of paper? Do you write them down in a text note and then come back to it later and then like fix it up?
I'll do text notes a lot. Like I could just and like even besides work, like if I'm just like doing something and I come up with an idea, I like to like make notes about it. Like I've been at like parties and stuff where it's like, hey, this would be a cool idea for a song, let me write it down. Or like an idea pops into my head. Um, like it kind of just happens. Like I'm not gonna like I try not to like overthink it and be like, oh man, I need to come up with a song like now, like so I can, because I'm not really doing this for money. Like, I mean, especially like DIY, like more raw black metal, like it's not really a thing you do for money. Like, I'm probably not going to make a crazy amount of money doing this, and that's fine. Like,
But you enjoy it, that's what matters, right?
yeah, like this is like for me, like as much as I'm like I want it to relate to other people and I want people to enjoy it, but like I'm not doing this for like people's money. Like I'm not doing this to be like the next like pop idol, like or the next like icon of metal or whatever. Like I feel like, I think things should take like time to make. Like it took me like almost a year to write like Hellbound Ritual Assault in its entirety. Like I thought it was only going to take a few months, but like just life just happens. Like
Yeah,
stuff happens when you don't expect it to. I mean, that's just how the world is though. That's just the human experience.
I agree with that. For my last and final question, with Hellbound Ritual Assault being your first full-length release, what would you like listeners to take away from it? Do you see this album as a gateway to future releases or as a standalone statement in Dumuzid's journey?
I'm definitely gonna be making a lot more stuff. I've already got like ideas for like another album or another like single or EP. I'm not sure which direction I'm gonna go yet, but I have ideas for music. Um, I would say I lean more towards the gateway aspect where I want it to be like a progression of evolution of like of sound. I mean, most bands usually don't sound the same like throughout their entire journey. I mean, like if you like listen to a lot of like classic rock or like metal or punk, like the early stuff for like Van Halen does not sound like the later stuff for Van Halen. And like even with like pop music, it's the same with like Taylor Swift, for instance. Like I'm not really a huge fan of Taylor Swift, but like, you know, her earlier music is very different from her later music. Like I feel like almost every artist goes through that, and that's something I want to go through too, where it's like, hey, this first release is very different from the next thing that came, and like just looking back on it and being like, hey, like I'm glad of the way things went.
Yeah, change is bound to happen. And I know some people don't like change, but others do, and they embrace it. So I feel like with whatever you come up with, I know people will like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then thank you for letting me interview you. And then was that all for your response, or did you have anything else to say, add to it? Just wondering. Of
Um, no, that's about it. Thank you for interviewing me.
course.